So welcome everyone. I would like to welcome our special guest for this afternoon, for this evening talk, a special friend from Hungary, Raymond and Furugh Switzer. Please wave your hands so that people know. So I know this wonderful couple from Hungary, as I'm myself from Hungary, from the Baha'i community. And they have been in Hungary for probably, they will tell me, I think more than 20 years now. Am I right? Good. Furugh Switzer is a Persian-Canadian sociologist, workshop leader, lecturer, trainer, director, and life skills educator. And she is currently the director of development projects for the Unity and Diversity Foundation in Hungary. And her wonderful husband, Raymond Switzer, is a Canadian psychologist, therapist, workshop leader, lecturer, writer, a part-time musician. They live both together in Gödöllő, which is a beautiful town next to Budapest. And Raymond is a believer in marriage, specializes in work with couples, and is a certified imago relationship therapist. He also sees individuals with a variety of issues and concerns, and you can find more details about them on their websites, which I will be putting in the message, livinghealthyconnection.com. So thank you so much for Raymond and Furugh, first of all, to accept my invitation for this evening. And let me give the words to you, as it's a very precious 1 hour and I don't want to take more time. Let me unmute you if I can. Payam, would you mind unmuting them? Because I cannot do that, unfortunately.
Okay. Good. It's probably better if we're unmuted if we're giving a presentation. It's good to see all these lovely faces. I'm not sure where you all are. Are you all from Malta? Put your hand up. Maltese. All right. All right.
Not everyone from Malta. We have from all parts of Europe.
Other places too.
How about if for a second you unmute everyone and people just say where they're sitting, in which country?
Yes.
They're watching us.
So Payam, can you unmute everyone? Perfect.
France.
So just say
from Italy, from Malta, Italy.
Okay.
And Brazil.
We are from Portugal. Hello.
Hello.
This time is it? At least?
No,
This is the only time.
we are in Lisbon, Portugal.
Uh-huh.
I am in Malta.
Lithuania.
From Brazil, America.
Wow. Brazil.
Oh,
Lovely.
okay. Lovely.
Okay.
Lovely group of diverse countries.
Yes. Yes.
From Lisbon, Portugal.
Okay.
Oh, hello.
Samra from Holland.
We remember you from the Baha'i Summer School some years ago. Do you remember still?
Yes.
Your nice
Yes.
talks?
Yes, we remember you, of course.
Hello.
On the chat, we have some friends from Brazil, France, Netherlands, Brazil again, Portugal. So there are other. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Wonderful. Okay.
All right. A nice way to spend some time with people from all over the world when we're locked on, all of us, into our homes. So, fellow inmates, maybe we should get started. Okay. So if it wasn't clear from the introduction, both Furugh and I work with couples. We work together with couples. And we are going to make a connection between humanity as a whole and marriage. And everything is connected, especially now we're feeling it because of a virus which can infect any of us anytime from around the planet. This is just clear evidence that we are connected. Do I press there?
Yeah.
Okay, want to get the PowerPoint working a little bit.
This one.
Okay, let me try now. Okay. So,
Okay.
our reality. So starting with the big picture. We are one. Again, we all have the same blood. That's why we all can be infected by a virus, which is affecting the whole planet. So we always have been one. We are one people. We come from one creative source. And that reality never leaves us, but we are not necessarily aware of it most of the time. One of the reasons why we maybe don't feel it is that of all of the species of animals or plants or whatever has been created in the whole universe, the human being is the most differentiated creature. So somewhere, most of anthropologists believe we all got our start somewhere in Africa, our human start. And somehow, gradually, our ancestors moved around, shifted around. And with every shift, with every meeting of other people, with every different environment, with all kinds of factors, we differentiated. We grew different. Each one of us is individuated in such a way that we are completely different and unique. There's no copy of us. And we have many other ways which make us different. Let's move on. So we are the most differentiated species on the planet, but we have been given uniquely a gift of consciousness. So we can become conscious of our oneness. We can also become conscious that we're really unique, each one of us. And there's a challenge in this, and that is as we wake up to our sense of having a self, that's part of our, big part of our consciousness too. We are a self. As we wake up to that, around the age and time that we wake up to that, we also start to realize we're not the center of the universe. Our caretakers are there, not just for us necessarily. It may seem like that at the beginning, but they start to appear as other. They have a will of their own. They have an intended direction, often for us, which is not necessarily where we want to go. Starts to be a challenge. And that early experience of otherness has an inherent challenge to it, which we carry through every stage of our life. There's something challenging, uncomfortable, unpredictable about the other, which can be a source of anxiety for us. And that side of us, our self, which develops and becomes more and more conscious, tends to want others to be like us and to fit in with us. And when we are confronted with their difference, it can result in difficult relationships. Now, we are also social creatures, like no other creature. There's animals which are social creatures. We are the most social by far. We create community. We create groups. We have, from the very beginning of our existence, created groups. We have gotten together. We share our talents. We share our capacities. And we want to be with others. We feel alone and incomplete if we're not with others. So it's part of who we are. From this, we start to develop social groups. We started from very small clans and moved eventually into forming villages and so on and so forth until we got to towns and cities and city-states and countries. And well, we're at a whole new stage now, and that is we realize that we are connected all over the planet, no matter what our background, no matter what our nationality, no matter what our ethnic origins. So we create these societies in ever larger groups. And we can ask ourselves, what is it that brings us together? And how have we managed these groups? Always there's a structure involved. Always there's some kind of standards set within each group about what it means to be a member of the group. This is socialization, and every human on the planet is socialized. The different groups have differences in their socialization. And this is also not an easy process for us, becoming socialized. That's one of the reasons why we take so long to grow up as individuals. This is another unique factor of human beings, that we take a very long time to grow up. And a lot of that period, we're completely dependent on caregivers to help us, to protect us, to teach us. We need teachers. We need teaching. To be an adult human being, we all need an education. And our educational sources have varying differences about where they would like us to grow, the direction they would like us to take. And there's a very strong moral element to this. We are moral creatures. This is what can tie us together. How we can be decent towards one another, a huge part of morality. And this is what helps us somehow be together despite the differences and difficulties and our uniqueness. And our differences, though, always remain a challenge to our societies, to our groupings. Now, there is a grouping which I've stepped over here, which is the most fundamental one, and that is pair bonding. We are a pair bonding creature, again, like no other creature. There's only a couple of mammals that pair bond. And they're nothing like human beings. They're pair bonding because they mate and they stay together with their mate through life. And this is what human beings are designed for, and much more profoundly than other creatures. And this is something that is so important to us. It's the basics for us, first of all, it's the environment that we grow up in from babyhood. We have a mother and a father who's there. That doesn't happen with all creatures. And we have a mother and father who have a relationship with each other, and that relationship is very important to us. Now, Margaret Mead, a very famous anthropologist, an early one, who studied human groupings from all around the world, and she said that every human grouping that she has encountered has some form of what we call marriage. A kind of accepted arrangement within a community of how a man and woman will be together and raise a family. And it's been around for a very long time, these kinds of arrangements, until it definitely can be called a social institution, a universal one. And as it evolved, and as this is something that I've left out in terms of our collective development, one of the things that has really helped us, especially to form very much larger groups, is our religion. We now have what are pretty much universal religions or world religions, which almost all of us, whether we call ourselves religious or not, have been very much influenced by. And they all have a way of being married, certain rules and regulations about marriage. And they can vary in certain respects. There's usual ways where they're similar. And the universal religions have really come to see marriage, sometimes most explicitly, as a sacred institution as well. There's a spiritual purpose to it and a spiritual element to it. In either case, whether we see it as a social institution or as a sacred institution or as both, it is a structure which helps us to form the basis for other structures in our societies. And every structure has a way of expected being to it and a boundary, in a sense, around it. It's not a physical boundary necessarily, although when we get married, one of the things we do nowadays usually is to develop our own home, and we have walls around us. But a marriage has a boundary which is part of the agreement between husband and wife, and a commitment of hopefully staying together, which is ideal for having children. Now, this social and sacred institution has evolved through millennia. And we are in, as I've touched upon already, we are in an age where we've come to see ourselves as interconnected. This is kind of a conscious recognition of our oneness, which has always been there, but not necessarily consciously. But we now know, we hear about things like climate change, and we know, okay, what we're doing affects the climate now, and that affects other people on faraway places on the planet. So we are in a new context, a global context. And Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, has said that with this new context is a new revelation. And he says all things have been made new. We have to start to see with new eyes and start to learn new behaviors. And the institution of marriage is reaffirmed by Baha'u'llah, but it is also a changed institution. And this is something that psychologists have recognized. Only maybe in the last 3 or 4 decades at most have psychologists come to recognize that this is probably the main reason why we struggle with marriage right now, why there's such high divorce rates around the world, and troubled marriages even when there aren't divorce or separation happening. So this is nevertheless very, very important to somehow manage it, to wake up to what is this new structure. And with that, I would like to pass it on to my better half, dear Furugh, and she will show us a lot more down-to-earth way of what we're called to do in marriage and how we can make them work with the new model.
Yeah, so let's zoom in into families and marriage from this perspective of oneness and unity, and see how we can deal with differences today in the world as we see it as one home, as one country. So most of the things I'm going to mention here about marriage are from the Baha'i writings. So Abdul Baha says that a family is a nation in miniature. Simply enlarge the circle of the household and you have the nation. Enlarge the circle of nations and you have all humanity. The conditions surrounding the family surround the nation. So the beginning point is in the family. If we want to create a world in which there's harmony and unity amongst different elements, the workshop is in our home. And within the family, the starting point is between the wife and husband. That's where is the most challenging because it's very intimate relationship, but that's where it can really develop. That's where we can develop the skills that are needed for dealing with differences and bringing unity. So the new model of marriage that Raymond was referring to has different goals. One of them is to procreate. Another goal of the new model of marriage is growth, is development, because it's a marriage between two equal human beings. Two equal human beings who are both capable, talented, and unique in their contribution to the world. So the marriage should be a marriage which enriches the spiritual life of each other. It should be a marriage that supports the growth of each individual. And another goal of marriage is tapping into the diverse elements, using the differences, because there is no question about ample differences between a wife and a husband, between feminine elements and masculine elements that are involved in a marriage. I think it goes without question that there is a lot of differences there. And how do we use these differences actually? Not only to tolerate them, not only to put up with differences, but to actually use these differences to grow, to create unity in the microcosm, which is the family. So, one of the tools for creating unity between different elements in humanity is consultation. In other words, communication, verbal connection, relationship between people. So we're just going to, I will just mention maybe 3 kinds of consultations that is useful and important, significant in the context of a marriage. And yes, Baha'u'llah says that about consultation, he says, no power can exist except through unity. No welfare and no well-being can be attained except through consultation. So consultation is a bridge which can be built between people of difference, between people who are other than us, so that we can connect and understand and unite. So in marriage, yeah, this is new race of couples building the fortress for well-being. The first kind of consultation in marriage, I call it conversation. Conversation is just speaking to each other as 2 friends. This is not to solve problems, this is not to make decisions, it's just encountering each other as 2 helpmates, as 2 friends. In other words, to update each other of what is going on in our mind. What are the aspirations? What are the hopes? What are the fears? What are the worries that we go through? What makes us happy? What made us happy today at work? Just these kinds of conversations that are very important between a wife and husband. To have this kind of bridge between wife and husband, to know what is happening in the psyche and in the life of each other. Sometimes when we don't have these small talks, we grow distant from each other. We really are not aware of how each one is evolving, because we are evolving all the time. If we are human beings and if we are alive, we are changing and hopefully we are evolving. And it is good to keep this line of communication between wife and husband to know how we are evolving. What are our concerns nowadays? What are our aspirations? The second kind of consultation in marriage is for decision making. There are ample cases in a marriage that we need to make decisions. And consultation is the tool. Consultation should take place on all matters in marriage, whether major or minor. Sometimes in our own mind, we think this is not important and we make decisions which later becomes a cause of conflict and hurt feelings of our partner. So it's something that in the new model of marriage, we need to become familiar with, that we cannot, like in the past, make decisions on our own. Even if we think we are more expert in that area, we still need maybe the 50%, maybe the 30%, maybe even just the 10% of the opinion of our partner. Because as you know, truth is not absolute, it's relative. So in order to get to a good decision, to get the truth, we need to see the fact from different perspectives. We need to have the humility to know that the truth is not just with us. So this kind of consultation is a cause of awareness and awakening, is a source of good and well-being, is a means of finding the right solutions, and is a tool for investigating the truth. And here is some quotations from the Baha'i writings. Should anyone oppose, so if we are consulting and our partner has a totally different idea, he must on no account feel hurt, for until matters are fully discussed, can the right way be revealed. And Abdul Baha says, the shining spark of truth cometh forth only after the clash of differing opinions. So we need to actually invite different opinions to be sure that we make the right decision. And not insist upon their own opinions. For stubbornness and persistence in one's view will lead ultimately to discord and wrangling, and the truth will remain hidden. That's from Shoaib Effendi. The third kind of consultation in marriage is for the purpose of resolving differences, resolving conflicts and issues that come up. In this area of consultation, what Baha'u'llah has said comes to me is of most significant here, where he talks about consultation and compassion. What I get from this is coming together of mind and heart. So consultation, we usually think that reason, rationale, and proofs. But he puts it together with compassion. So a consultation that brings together elements of heart and mind. Also in the Baha'i writings, we read the spirit of frank and loving consultation. So it is frank. We are not withdrawing, we are not hiding our opinions, our feelings, but it is at the same time loving. And the purpose of this kind of consultation at times of conflict is understanding. It is not to prove who is right, who is wrong. It is to be able to understand the feelings and the thoughts of our partner, where they come from, what is happening for them, and to be able to honor that, not to deny it, not to fix it, but to validate it, and even further to empathize with it. This is where oneness occurs. This is where unity starts to happen. When we can come from different dimensions, from different sides of the same event and issue, with different memories maybe, with different experiences, and to be able to stay together, to understand each other, and even validate and empathize the other. This is the process from differences to connection, from differences to unity. So in this kind of loving consultation, which we call it a mindful dialogue between wife and husband, we need to take care, because it's a very sensitive, very important kind of consultation. We need to make sure we are both ready and in a state of mind to have this sacred consultation, to be able to be vulnerable to each other, to share our deepest feelings, feelings of hurt, of pain, and to be able to listen to them with our hearts. In this kind of dialogues, usually there is only one person speaking and the other is receiving, until we have totally heard the other and have totally understood what they had said and have validated it and can empathize. This is the proof of good listening. If we have listened deeply, we are able to put ourselves in their shoes and to actually understand their feelings. And then there's always the possibility of inviting the other to listen to you, and then the shift occurs, and then the receiver becomes the sender. Now, there are certain things for sender, for this person who speaks, who is speaking, that are important to keep in mind. First of all, respect the space and time of the other. So when there is a conflict, we need to make an appointment to talk. The time of the conflict, when we are all emotional and full of feelings, is not the best time to talk about it. So to actually ask the partner to say something is bothering me, or I'm really upset about something, when is a good time to talk? And for the other to have the respect to give the time. If it's not right there and then, to give maybe a couple of hours later or tonight. And the sender needs to be direct to the point. We don't need a lot of background, history, context. The shorter, the better. So right to the point about what has happened and what are the feelings that have been hurt. And to be open and frank, not to be sarcastic, not to make allusions, just to present the issue, and speaks humbly of one's own reality. So there's an element of humility here to say, this is what happened and this is how I felt. It is not about the other, it's about your own feelings. And here are some examples of a not so loving sending when you are speaking. If we are criticizing, if we are blaming, attacking, scolding and yelling, humiliating and shaming, if we are repeating ourselves over and over, sarcastic remarks, analyzing, judging, and labeling. So if we are going into analyzing the other and judging and telling them you're always like this or you're never this, if we are threatening and warning, and if we are lecturing and teaching, none of these belongs to a mindful dialogue, because none of them is a loving consultation. Now, on the other hand, the receiver, of course, gives time to listen. It gives the safety by listening, by not correcting and fixing and arguing with it, and is inviting and open and curious. That's a very important element, because most of the time we think we know our partner, we know all these cases. But to be interested to see exactly at this point what is happening, and validating the other, listening with heart and soul, and be able to empathize. Okay, I'd like to finish my part with this quotation from the Baha'i writings. And we are then open and inviting your comments and questions, of course. So Abdul Baha says, no mortal can conceive the union and harmony which God has designed for man and wife. Nourish continually the tree of your union with love and affection. So it's a process. The union, the unity is a process that will be there till the end of our lives.
All right. Nicely put, my dear.
Is someone there? Oh, Balaj.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's open it up for questions. You may have some questions. We'd be glad to respond to whatever you want to bring up about what we've presented.
And comments.
Yeah, we're interested.
I saw Christine is waving, so let's give the word for the first question to Christine from Portugal.
Yeah, so the previous, one of the last slides, which is the mindful dialogue, which is about criticizing and blaming and attacking and yellowing. What? Yellowing?
Yelling.
This
Yelling.
This is the slide that I saw that where I do all those mistakes and where I receive all those mistakes, not only in the marriage, but overall with the friends and with colleagues and so on. I would like to speak more about that slide, about that this is really very active in our society to be attacked and we attack. I would like to discuss more about that slide, which is really important for me.
You would like some more discussion on it. It is a very important thing to note. This is, as Furugh said, in marriage, in this new model of marriage, where we have to learn these skills because it is now between equals. This is very, very clear. This is what people expect going into marriage now. It wasn't the case with the older models of marriage, whatever form they took. It wasn't between equal partners. There were clear roles. One area for one partner, another area for the other. It was very clear and very strong. It was of a strong structure. It worked very well through the centuries, but it didn't have the movement. It didn't allow for all of the uniqueness of the individuals in the relationship to come forward. And in earlier ages, it wasn't that important. In earlier times, it was much more about surviving. And we're in a new era now in many, many ways. And we all need to learn how to relate in this way. And as you were suggesting, Christine, is we've got to take it into the world. We have to develop this somewhere so that we can have discussions and make decisions and be understood by people who come from very different backgrounds, because we're in it all together. The earth is one home now. We see it, we feel it, and we have to learn to manage it. And we cannot just have wars, for example, which happened not infrequently in history. It's not a very good way of solving things. So we have to find a way, and in this new model of marriage, if it's going to work, we have to learn, in a sense, a different language, a different way of relating.
And a new discourse.
Yeah. Paula says this is a new time and a new discourse is required. And it doesn't include all of these elements that were on that slide, the criticizing, the shaming, the blaming, which is coming from a point of ego. This is not our higher part of ourselves showing up. It's a part that wants to think we're higher, and that's the problem. There's a subtle sense of I know and you don't know, and you should learn. And it doesn't work in this new model. It just doesn't work. So that's a little bit of my thoughts on this. Would you like to?
Well, yeah, exactly. All of those items there are there because of inequality. So if I'm teaching him or lecturing or criticizing or blaming or shaming, there's a feeling of superiority. There's a feeling that I know, like you said, that I know better. And this is not the case anymore in the new model of marriage. No one is the teacher of the other. There are two equal human beings. And this can be expanded to the world the same way. You know, countries have been dominating countries in the past. We are now awakening to equality, to justice, to honor people who have been oppressed in the past. These are all our new realities. And the workshop for learning this new language is at home. It starts between wife and husband. And if we can master it here to some extent, we can extend it to our workplaces. Definitely our children will benefit from it. Definitely we will become better parents if we become better partners. We can talk to our children. You know, we will not have crisis of teenage years anymore in future. We don't have to have that. Now I assume that children are going to get into their teenage years and there's going to be crisis, there's going to be trouble. We don't have to have that. Once we learn a new language of communicating with them, which is respectful, which is validating, which is empathizing, then we don't have these crises. Instead, we have understanding and we have opportunities for expansion and for growth, both for them and for us, both for me and for him, if we have this language.
Okay, so when I saw that slide, I felt that I have two obligations. It's to do my part, which is not to do those things that I saw in the slide. And what about my reaction about receiving those things? How I should behave when I see this in my life with me, by my family, my children, my friends, my colleagues. So what should be our behavior in this case?
Good question. Well, it's likely if those orientations of communication are coming our way, are leveled at us, it's going to affect us, usually negatively. And what do we do with that, I guess, is the essence of your question. And probably what we will need to do is talk about it. So we set it up. Yeah. We let the partner know that we're troubled by something and we want to have a good discussion. And this is the language that we use in the discussion should be ideally free of all of those elements that were on that slide. We don't want, for example, to assume that our partner is doing these things purposely to hurt us, even though we may feel very hurt. But we can let them know that we are hurt and let them know what the input was that brought that feeling up. That's really important information. And one of the reasons why we need to set up that discussion, to have a time that we're both ready to be there for each other in the discussion, is that it's going to be heard. It can be taken on board. And we learn this language. We can express ourselves fully, but respectfully. It's a lot easier for our partner to stay with us and hear us and make sense of us and get to that place which is like gold, which is understanding the other. Understanding and empathizing, as Furugh says. We really are with the person at that point. Now, we haven't made necessarily an agreement. We haven't decided on something yet, but from a place of understanding we are close to each other. We realize we are together and we are glad and feel safe together. And in this exchange, there's movement. We can be moved from our position, our assumptions. And this is growth, which is an essential element, as Furugh described, of this new model of marriage. It's a growth model. So we want to, on some deeper level, be moved. We want to grow.
Change our behaviors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that means letting go of our position so that we can empathize and understand. And from there, there is going to be some movement. Each one of us will be moved in some degree if we have a good, mindful dialogue with each other.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. There is another question from Alex from Malta, who asks, do you think that every couple should procreate to be defined as a healthy marriage? And how can the couple understand clearly how much children should they have?
Okay, very good questions. Interesting thing is, in this time, one of the things that is new about this era is that we can choose. We have birth control, for example, and this is what people all over the world are doing. And the majority are learning to have smaller families. That seems to be where we're going, but probably is not a bad idea for our planet because it has limited resources. We're all becoming aware of that. This is not to say where every individual couple needs to be. It's up to us to choose, but we choose together.
In consultation.
In consultation. It's one of the very important kinds of decisions we make together in marriage. The first part of the question, should we have children? It's interesting.
It was how many children should we have?
How many? I got that, yes. Yeah. I think we are called to have children if we can. In a similar way, we are called to be married, to get married if we can. But it's not a simple process. It's not, again, in this model, it's up to us. We are the protagonists in this. The couple, before we're married, it's our decision. And it starts with some kind of attraction. This is different from the older models of marriage, which were more arranged kind of marriages, as a rule. So we're called to marry. We should, if we're single, ideally, I think, be preparing ourselves for this. And it takes preparation because it's not simple.
And it's something to talk about before getting married. It's one of the things that is really good to talk about when two people are thinking of getting married. Because usually what happens is they think, okay, he or she is going to change their mind after a while, and so they don't take it seriously when they don't agree on something as important as having children. So it's a good point to, when you are courting, to talk about.
I often say that our ego will never get married. Because one thing that marriage is saying yes to this relationship forever. And the ego can't hear those kinds of words. I'm only going to be with this person for my whole life. No other choices. Too limiting. It sounds way too limited. no freedom there. Actually, the greater freedom comes from having a long-term relationship and learning the deep lessons in this very intimate, enduring relationship. The deep lessons of transcending our ego so that we can learn and grow and make adjustments where it's necessary, where it's called for, make better decisions, learning essentially to grow spiritually. And if we have an out, if we have an escape, we are usually sidestepping our opportunity for growth. We're sidestepping the challenges that are confronting our ego.
Thank you very much. The next question, do we have to wait the right moment to have our talk if one do not want to talk? Do we have to? It's from Carolina.
Yes, good question. So we often say that at the time of conflict is not a good time to talk. Okay, so as much as we want to, we are full of maybe anger or hurt feelings, and we want to right away throw it out at our partner. But at that time, it's not going to be conducive to any improvement. So it is good to calm yourself down, do some self-soothing, self-regulating activities. You can even write down some of your hurt feelings and ask for an appointment. So when we ask for an appointment, we say we have something we want to talk about. When is a good time? Is this a good time? If the partner is not ready at that time, they can say, no, I'm in the middle of something. I can't really do this, but I will get back to you in 2 hours. So the responsibility now is on the other partner to come back. You can't just say, no, I'm not ready right now, and forget it. The responsibility is on you to say, okay, I'm not ready right now, but maybe tonight we can talk about it. And usually within the next 24 hours, we should be responsible enough to get back to our partner, to listen to what they have to say. So this is an agreement that is good for the couples to have between themselves.
We realize, because we work with a lot of different couples from a lot of different backgrounds, that this is not easy. None of this is easy. It's not our reflex to be like this. It's a new way of being. It's inviting a lot more care into engaging with our partner or with anybody else. And yet, if we are going to have good outcomes, this is what we need to do. And it's not an option not to talk, to leave these things undone, because they fester if they aren't dealt with. We're going to be affected somehow. Something's going to stick in our body, and it's going to be affecting our intimacy, our closeness, our bond, which is sacred. It's our duty to really take care of it. One option which can work with couples very well, which is maybe easier than making appointments, is to have a regular time. Set a regular time with your partner that is set aside, especially for bringing up difficult things. So once a week, for example, you know you're going to meet at this time. You can prepare for it. Write down the things during the week that you may want to address, and so on and so forth. And after a while, you can develop a rhythm with it and start to say, okay, I've got a safe place to go to once a week. And in that place, we develop these skills, learn them, use them, and you start to get practiced at it and good at it, and you realize you're going to come away with a better relationship than you have going in. And it's really encouraging us. It helps us also to self-regulate in those moments when we're really frustrated. It helps us if in the back of our mind we know, okay, we've got this time slot where we can work this through and we're going to learn something from it and we'll feel good together.
So then I would ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
I have many questions, but I try to concentrate the most important ones. There is a beautiful quote, which is for me one of the greatest reminder. I'm also a married person about how to live in a marriage the right way. And Abdu'l-Baha has this quote. He says, "O ye two believers in God." I copied in the message so everyone can read it actually. "O ye two believers in God, the Lord, peerless is He, had made woman and man to abide with each other in the closest companionship and to be even as a single soul. They are two helpmates, two intimate friends who should be concerned about the welfare of each other." So my question is, because I'm meditating a lot on this, to become as one single soul is just such a high standard. What are your thoughts about what Abdu'l-Baha truly mean about this one single soul? Because we are two souls with our own characteristics, and then he suggests that we should become like one soul.
Mm-hmm. Very profound question. One thought that I have when I contemplate this is, as we engage in the kind of process and mindful dialogues that we encourage couples to do, we come into the dialogue with differences. I was affected by something that you did. So this is an other. This is the struggle, the challenge of otherness, which is a primal struggle for all of us to confront otherness, and it rubs us the wrong way. We come in with that, we discuss it thoroughly. We come to the point of understanding. We really understand the other. We've come from one world into a foreign world with interest and curiosity and respect. And we come out saying, I got it. And you make sense. I'm with you. And I understand your feelings. And we're together. At that point, we are together. And we can move together. We can make a decision where to go with this. We can make corrections and adjustments and agree on this. And when we're that, we're as one soul. We are together. We're linked. Where we were separate, where we were at a distance, where we were pushing at each other, now we're with each other.
Yeah, I think empathy is that. Empathy is a quality, is a characteristic that I think we should all develop. It's something we need to learn. Children, as they are born, they have this. But as they grow up, their ego takes over. But I think empathy is unity. when we can put ourselves in the shoes of the other, we realize their pain. We realize we are the same. If we were in the same situation, we would feel the same. So this empathy, when we can actually, instead of denying it, fixing it, teaching them you shouldn't be doing this, why on earth you are feeling like this, you know, arguing with other people. Instead of that, if we can understand them, if we can understand where they come from, then they don't have to argue. We don't have to argue. There's no back and forth. It's just one person, one soul talking, sharing, being vulnerable. And I can take that, I can validate that, I can accept that. And then we become one, really.
Thank you very much. I have another question, but I would love to hear other one before, unless I will
There
ask.
are already some questions in the chat, please. Can you read those?
Sure. Where are those?
There was, okay, so there was Pedro who wanted to say something. Pedro?
Thank you.
It's okay. Yes. Do you think it's possible in the new model of marriage, of equality, of course, not a submission of one spouse to the other, like in the old times, if we pick up in any given man and any given woman, and suppose they are very strong in consultation and not caring about the bonds they have one to each other, they develop a happy and successful marriage just because they are very strong in consultation and in those things that you have mentioned. Did you understand the question?
Yes, I think I do. Can we marry anybody? Can we get there with anybody? Is that your question essentially? Can we just, can we,
man and the woman,
is it possible if we're really good enough? Yeah.
Without any connection, without, let's say, suppose without physical attraction, but they are very strong in the consultation. Let's suppose they are very strong on consultation, spiritual. In these conditions, can they have a successful, happy marriage? It's possible. I mean, you see, my question is to see the degree of reliability of consultation in the process of the union of two people.
Well, they will have a very peaceful marriage. That part of it definitely can happen. And that in itself is they can grow in that. But there is this other element in marriage, that is the attraction, which is also very beautiful and I think equally important. So if I'm getting it correct, I don't know if I got the question well, but I think consultation is not the only element that is needed in marriage. In marriage, there is also the element of attraction. And that's Abdul Baha says to people who are looking for a partner in marriage, to find someone that's pleasing to you. So I feel that is in the new model of marriage is important to have that attraction.
Okay, thank you. So there is another question from Christine, but Christine, if you don't mind, we give the turn to Isa because you already have asked questions. She has her hand up. Isa, please.
The microphone.
You need to unmute, Payam.
Yes, I've got it.
She can do it herself, yes.
Thank you so much for the talk. So my question, thank you. I was thinking after Balázs was sharing his quote, I was thinking about another quote. I will also share it in the chat for everyone. Oh, maybe it's too long. I don't know. It's not sending. I will read it then. It's Or peerless Lord, in thine almighty wisdom, thou hast enjoined marriage upon the peoples, that the generations of men may succeed one another in this contingent world, and that ever, so long as the world shall last, they may busy themselves at the threshold of thy oneness, with servitude and worship, with salutation, adoration, and praise. I have not created spirits and men, but that they should worship me. Wherefore, wed thou in the heaven of thy mercy these two birds of the nest of thy love, and make them the means of attracting perpetual grace, that from the union of these two seas a love of wave of tenderness may surge, and cast the pearls of pure and goodly issue on the shore of life. He hath let loose the two seas that they meet each other. Between them is a barrier which they overpass not. Which then of the bounties of your Lord will ye deny? From each he bringeth up greater and lesser pearls. O thou, kind Lord, make thou this marriage to bring forth corals and pearls. Thou art verily the all-powerful, the most great, the ever-forgiving. And my question was, in the other quote we read, we should be as one soul. In this quote, Abdu'l-Baha tells us that we are like two seas, or the married couple is like two seas, and that they will meet each other, but between them is a barrier which they overpass not.
Yes.
So, for
No more. You unmuted. Unmute yourself, Isa.
sorry. To me, that appears as a contradiction, which is not, of course, but just by really putting these two quotes next to each other. So I also would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah. Wow.
Thank you.
Really great. I mean, it's a beautiful, powerful quotation, but such a good question. And how much we have pondered, I'm sure many have pondered this. What is this barrier that we cross not? The metaphor is two seas coming together, however. It's not that it's I don't see like there's a big dam or something, you know, that are separating these two seas. It's two seas coming together. But there's something in that which is one barrier that we don't overcross. And one of my personal conclusions on this, I don't know if it's right, but I'll put it out there, is there's, as individuals, we are responsible, personally responsible for our relationship to God. And there's something that is sacred about that, something that we cannot give away to somebody else, to anybody else. And this is an ongoing part of even a marital relationship. There is something there. We cannot give up that responsibility in the process of being married, of even having these mindful dialogues. There is something which is our own sacred territory, which we are personally responsible for. And it doesn't necessarily keep us away, keep us from being close, but it is something which is part of this union, a unique part of it.
I think also another way of looking at this boundary is probably when we say to validate and understand each other and not to dominate. So when we actually really keep each other as two equals, as God's creation, as a sacred soul with whom we are in contact, if we look at it that way, then we are not going to be blaming, shaming, criticizing, dominating, you know, all those things, manipulating. I think that's to keep the sacredness of the uniqueness of that soul, of each soul, to honor that, to have that respect. Because respect is something that really, if we lose it in our relationship, then it's just a downward journey. As long as we respect and honor each other as two spiritual beings, entities that are sacred, that's maybe another way of looking at that. But as Raymond said, I'm sure many people have many different ideas, and that's why it's nice to exchange ideas. We can all learn from each other.
Thank you. Maybe we can
Thank you.
The other question from Christine is that, from your experience, is it common to have less and less problems in marriage while being married, or problems come now and then as waves?
Depends on how you deal with the problems.
There are some couples that somehow live together with constant conflict. And maybe there's just a variance in the
energy.
Yeah, the amount of energy that's in each conflict. We're not recommending this as being a good marriage, but it. I think there's everything is changing around us, and we are growing. Ideally, again, this is a growth model. We are growing. If we have children, our children are growing. They're presenting a new reality to us every day. And these new realities also sometimes come in waves, like the coronavirus. Okay, we didn't have coronavirus 4 months ago. Now we've got it, and we're all being moved by it in some way. And a lot of things do come in waves, and there's definitely things that are not in our control. And it takes a lot of ability and skill to be able to maneuver. If there's two of us that are doing the maneuvering and we get good at managing it together, I would say we're more, what's the title of this seminar that we're having?
Resilient.
Yes. We develop resilience when we are able to go through this deep, challenging work with each other. The elements of two worlds coming together to form one is a much stronger and more resilient one, and gives us more capacity, and a capacity which also gets passed on to our children. And that becomes the capacity of the family then. And we start to emanate that, and we start to be able to do this more with other families and help with building community and all of that. It's all a movement, a wider movement. And the more we create these wider circles of unity and connectedness, the more resilient we are, the less vulnerable we are to the changes and chances of the world, which are always coming our way.
Thank you. There is Maria who wanted to ask a question.
Yes, please. When my partner is doing something wrong that is hurting me, my reaction is to be quiet and go to a corner and stay there. until the war is fading. Instead, I should find the courage to tell him what's wrong, the fact that I was hurt by his behavior.
Are you asking whether it's right that you go quiet and you don't respond? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, there are two kinds of reactions we have when we are hurt. One is when we are aggressive, we are active in our aggression. So these type of people, yeah, we yell, we raise our voice, we use bad language, you know, we just give it to the other. This is the way we show our anger and our hurt feelings. This is very hurtful, this is very harmful, and it's not good for resolving the issues. The other action is when we go quiet and we withdraw and we become silent and actually use this technique to punish our partner. This is a passive kind of aggression. And
it's not to
yes.
Sorry, it's not to punish. It's my reaction, because when I'm hurt, when I feel sick, I try to stay on my own in defensive way.
Yeah.
So not that it's not provocative, not punishing way. No.
Yeah, maybe in your mind it's not punishing, but maybe the partner will feel that. I don't know about your case, but sometimes some partners go quiet for long periods of time, you know, like maybe days and weeks and months. That's the way they react to hurt feelings. And that becomes also very harmful to the relationship because it's not conducive to resolving the issue. So neither one of these is really the best way of facing a problem. The best way of facing the problem is to be able to talk about it in a calm manner.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Can I add? Oh, I'd like to add a little something here. I guess possibly because I'm well practiced at this also. That means, you know, holding on to things and being, I'm more the kind of second type that Furugh is talking about. There are a lot of things that affect us. Some things affect us very deeply. Some things trigger old wounds in us. And these kinds of things want to be addressed. And it's depriving the relationship of not bringing it up if we just hold on to it. And this is, there's a word in English called resentment, which covers this quite well. It's holding on to, it's burying something, but there are some things that just don't really stay buried. They manifest themselves somehow, which have a deadening influence, if nothing else. But that's not a very happy or healthy situation. And we may not see it. It may be so much below the surface, and even our partner may not be consciously picking up on it, but our partner will be affected. However, there are some things which come our way, which affect us, which we can work through internally. It's not such a high degree thing that we lose our sense of our higher being. We can let go, completely let go. This is detachment. And if it's true detachment, we're not carrying anything with us. And there's no harm done in the relationship. There's no deadening influence. we're still fully alive. So maybe sometimes we can do that, and it's all right. We don't have to bring up everything that moves us or agitates us in even a small way. It may not be necessary at all. Some things, okay, I can just let go of it. But if there's anything that's going to hang on, it's good to bring it up in an effective way.
Thank you very much for all the questions. I think, unfortunately, we are now past the time, but I want to ask one last question, if you don't. Because I personally know how amazing a couple therapist you are by experience, and you have been working in this field for many years. So probably the best ending question could be is, what is the top 5 mistakes people come to you, married couples come to you, and what are the top 5 solutions for those common mistakes people and marriages are doing? Because I think we can take that home and start to practice ourselves.
So that sounds like another seminar, Balázs.
I was just going to say that. I thought the same. That's another seminar in itself.
So maybe we should have another seminar? That's what you're suggesting?
Sure, somewhere down the line.
That's a lot, yeah. 5 top is...
Yeah. I will say this, all right? What we've covered today is a very major piece. If we can learn this particular skill, it goes far. I said it's not easy to learn, but it's well worth taking whatever time you need, making the time with your partner to be able to have these kinds of dialogues and clearing things through and being moved by each other and getting closer as a result of that. That's a foundation.
So maybe we can leave you with 3 or 4 qualities that you need to develop. One is curiosity. Okay, to not assume you know everything, not assume you know your partner by now. This is the way he is, this is the way she is. So develop curiosity, develop interest in how your partner feels. Interest in the feelings of your partner. Third, humility. Humility is the quality we need to develop in asking for an appointment, in asking for requesting a change of behavior. We need to develop humility to say, this behavior or this talk, these words affect me like this. And I would like to ask you to change this. I would like to ask you. It's not demanding, it's not ordering, it's not lecturing that everybody should do this, everybody knows this. It is a humble request.
Would you be willing to move in this direction a bit?
So these qualities, really, curiosity, interest, humility, and openness to make a change. If we are married, we need to make changes in our behavior. Nobody should put up, no matter how much they love us, they should not put up with the way we are. This is a fallacy out there that we hear, that if you love me, you should love me the way I am. This is no good, the way I am. I want to become a better person. And my partner is the mirror. My partner is the blueprint for my improvement. If I'm open and if I can listen to them. So this openness to stretch into new behaviors, to change and to grow as a human being. These are the qualities that we can start developing.
Thank you so much, Raymond and Furugh. I personally enjoyed a lot, and I'm pretty sure everyone else. This recording was recorded, and Payam will, if you allow for us, then we would put it up on YouTube, so who missed or who want to listen it again, it would be available. Would that be okay with you?
Sure. Are you talking to us or to Paya?
No, I'm talking to you, as you were the one who was giving
yeah. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we had the bounty of watching the last seminar. It was very interesting for us, so we really appreciated that. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and we definitely would love to have another session in the future, because I think that is coming more into details and more field work.
Yes, please. Thank you very much indeed. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I am waiting for the next one. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. You're a very gracious audience.
Yeah, thank you. And I really liked the questions and the thoughts that were coming from these.
Yeah.
Really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
And it was really very simple webinar. And when it is simple, it can be really complex. So it was really nice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Our pleasure.
I'd like to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good.
Very much.
See you,
Lots
everyone.
of love to all of you.
We continue next Saturday with another talk, everyone. So keep in touch.
We would like to.
We always have a new speakers. Every Saturday we try to find someone interesting for the next weekend. So stay in touch.
Can I just say something before we all go?
Sure, go ahead.
Honesty was never mentioned in this topic.
Ah.
There are many important things that could not be mentioned today.
Honesty is a major part of a relationship.
Oh yes,
definitely.
No fighting.
Não sei como é que faz.
Honesty is the most important thing.
Yes.
I find that with my
Tirar foto.
for 18 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. And it's a very being honest and open.
Yeah, exactly.
Is not an option. We must have these qualities and bring them forward. How to do it, very much, you know, in a mindful way, if we can do it, the relationship.
Trust, you know, honesty means trust. If you're honest and you're trusted, then you can move on from there. But it has to be an open discussion.
Mas como eu não tenho isso, né?
Yeah.
That's all I can say. Thank you very much.
Não sei como é que é.
I hope to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to meet all of you.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.